Hello everyone, in this video I'd like to discuss one of the biggest mysteries in Berserk, the episode 83 idea of evil. What is the meaning of that existence? Why was it deleted in the book? I'll be digging deeper, so let's get started. First, let's talk about the origins of the Berserk's world. The Berserk's world looks like medieval Europe. The ordinary human world is called the present world. As Shirka says, the present world overlaps with at least two other worlds. One is the astral world. The world consisted of the spirit or astral existence. The other is the soul, the root of all existence, the world of ideas. The astral world is where unworldly things that attack Guts and his friends are rampant, such as elves and trolls, or the apostles and demons. The present world where humans live is interfered with by this astral world and the world of ideas, which we have little information about at this time. And between the present world and the astral world, there is a world called the interstice that straddles both. Guts and Casca, who were branded as sacrifices, exist in the interstice. Well, there are some explanation about the astral world, but its true nature of the world of ideas still remains a mystery. In Flora's explanation, the deeper you go, the further you reach through your own karma. If you dive too deep, you'll never be able to return. No one has ever gone that far alive. But beyond that, in the abyss, maybe. It's a reference to the idea of evil in episode 83. So can we assume that the ideas are the idea of evil? Now then, let's discuss the main topic.
First of all, let me give you a brief summary. Griffith decided to sacrifice the entire band of the Hawk. After entering the cocoon for reincarnation, he reached to the abyss, a crucible of dark thoughts, and he had a meeting with the gods. There is a realm of consciousness at the bottom of the human mind that is shared beyond the individual. The dark side of the total consciousness is the crucible of dark thoughts. The idea of evil is born from this as a being with an ego. The reason God was born was because we, humans, sought a reason for the suffering that we experience in our lives. Pestilence, hunger, war, hatred, jealousy, all kinds of unmanageable suffering. Where does it come from? Why does it happen? By assuming the existence of God, the absolute, we can say that all suffering is the destiny and we can relieve. In some of the existing religions, gods have been created in this way, and the idea of evil was born in this way and materialized in the crucible of dark thoughts. In other words, God is in the shared consciousness of us. It exists in everyone's mind, and all of humanity is connected to God, and He controls our destiny as what we want Him to do. He manipulates fate to get to the point where Griffith becomes the God Hand. And all of history was staged by God for Femto's reincarnation. What does God want from God Hand? It is to do as you wish. The same rule applies to the other apostles. I don't know exactly what the other God Hands want. Griffith asked God wings. And this is where the name Wings of Darkness comes from. And it also connects to his fastest way in order to reach his dream, which he needs to build up the corpse more and more to reach it. And Griffith reincarnated as Femto, aka Wings of Darkness. So why was episode 83 not included in the book? I can think of two reasons. 1. Because it says too much about the essence of the story. It was put on hold to prevent spoilers for future stories. 2. The story is contradictory in its setting, so it was withheld. I'll explain them one by one. 1. Consideration in the case of spoiler prevention. In other words, this episode 83 is a very essential part of the story. Hunger, poverty, sickness, death, anger, hatred, jealousy, grief. From the swell of these emotions, the idea of evil acquired his ego in response to the reasons for human suffering. Man's destiny is manipulated by the idea of evil, which is the dark core of human consciousness. He controls the cause and effect of the world through God Hands, or the once-in-a-thousand-year incarnation. But considering what happened after the eclipse, this control of cause and effect might be less than perfect.
I'm wondering if there are things the idea of evil can't control. Indeed, God exists in the depths of our shared consciousness. It means God is a part of humanity. At the same time, all of humanity is part of God. The core of the dark side of the human shared consciousness is the one who controls cause and effect. So it can be said that humans are in control. If that is the case, even there is no contradiction whatsoever. If it is incomplete, the fact that Griffith let Guts and Casca escape from the eclipse, I guess Griffith couldn't kill Guts and Casca because of his own emotions in this scene. If he had killed them, their children would have been the substitute for Griffith's incarnation. Perhaps it didn't have to be Guts and Casca's child. But by making the two of them into a reincarnation, he's immersed in human emotions only on the night of the full moon. It's not like he's a god hand. The idea of evil told him to do as he wished, and Griffith did just as he was told. But this situation, it appears to me that he is not in control of causality. If the idea of evil's control of causality isn't completely perfect, it seems to me that the cause of the causal singularity is related to positive human emotions, such as love. Griffith couldn't kill Guts because of his love for Guts. The baby that became a substitute for the incarnation was the result of Guts and Casca's love for each other. And the revival of the Skull Knight is also the result of his feelings for the Cherry Blossom Maiden and Floras. I can imagine the future from here that the Skull Knight's Sword of Beherit might enable them to reach the abyss. And so this means to cut off the cause and effect of the Dark Age by killing the idea of evil, the origin of causality, and the core of humanity's dark side. In other words, the true villain of this story is the dark side of our shared consciousness itself. If the God Hand is the apostle of the idea of evil, they would disappear at the same time. The Skull Kite's desire for revenge would also be fulfilled. 2. If there is a contradiction in the setting, I'm going to discuss the reason why it was put on hold. In the case there is a contradiction in the setting, if the spoiler-preventing considerations in number 1 are correct, here are the contradictions that would occur. Slan said, later, people will call this era the Dark Ages. But if that God is in control of cause and effect, isn't it always a dark age because the dark side of man creates God? But in fact, the era after the 5th God Hand reincarnation is called the Dark Ages. If the era before Femto's reincarnation is not the Dark Ages, are there any other gods than the idea of evil? A difference in energy balance between the idea of evil and the other gods caused the Dark Ages. The dark side is just an aspect of our shared consciousness. If the dark side gives birth to a god with an ego, shouldn't there be a god with a loving bright side? God Hand of Light, for example? In fact, in the series that followed, there was no such expression. I don't think Mr. Miura prefers such a simple dualism of good and evil. In other words, the setting of controlling cause and effect, including the dark side of humanity, created the core of the ego and became a god, a contradiction in terms. After the great roar of the astral world, there are depictions of sacred Griffith in Falconia and the world of human life, and the evil pandemonium exist in the same space. Looking at this, it's a world of chaos rather than a dark world where humans and the apostles, who used to be enemies, are working together to fight. It's a depiction of the intermingling of the two, not a dualism of the dark side and the bright side. It's a depiction that dissolves the distinction between good and evil. It's a fight where everything is intermingled, the holy and the demonic and the human. I've never seen chaos like this before in the series of Berserk. The dark side of humanity has taken form in the idea of evil. It seems a little too complicated to be a scenario that it is intended to follow. Calling this situation the Dark Ages doesn't feel right either. Perhaps Mr. Miura wanted to change the description of idea of evil to something born from the dark side of man's shared consciousness. In other words, episode 83 might be simply rejected. In this case, the idea, the soul to be roots of existence, is not the idea of evil. In other words, what the idea is has not yet been revealed at all. I can vaguely imagine that the Sword of Beherit might be involved here. But this time, I'd like to talk about the origins of the present world and the reason why episode 83, Idea of Evil, was not included in the book. I came up with 2 reasons. What do you think? I'd like to know if there are any other possibilities about discussion. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit the like and comment. Thank you for watching.